Alright, so this is the second video for Sprint 1 Week 2. Sprint 1 Week 4 for IT 380. We're going to be talking about the wireframe diagrams for the title scene and intro scene. So wireframes actually, to me, as I was going through that chapter 6 in the last video dealing with scenarios and statements, I don't know if I can find it right off. I just made a connection that it felt a lot like brainstorming. Yeah, the framework definition. So, okay. So a lot of these requirements, wireframes could start to overlap well. And I think in the next chapter, I think they start talking about frameworks. I don't think they talk about wireframing specifically. I'll take a look after this video. And if so, I'll assign a reading. But I didn't see anything on wireframes. But so when we prototype and we get our initial ideas out, you might hear terms like storyboards or wireframes, or even maybe low fidelity prototypes or high fidelity prototypes. Anyway, our user flow diagrams, our user journeys, user maps. So what's happening is we're starting to define the navigation of our software. We're starting to define the user interface and what the interactions are like, what the software affords, what features the user can interface with through the user interface. And you have to start to use some type of visual artifacts or diagrams to explain these ideas to programmers and to the other teams to start to actually implement it in software. So wireframes are used heavily in web development. I'm just going to do a quick Google search, see if there's some interesting images. Yeah, these look pretty good. So you'll notice that there's like a lot of boxes with X's, and this is just saying that there would be like content here or some type of image, and they'll use like fake text. You'll see that like lorem ipsum, like this Latin garbage text a lot. Here, this product name, lorem ipsum, blah, 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 overview. And so they're kind of showing the layout of the user interface, and they're showing how the different parts of the app, but they're not really concerned with like finished look. They're just trying to get stuff out of their head onto paper. What would it look like? So sometimes they don't even care about images. They just put a big box with an X, like this, something would go here. I'm not really sure what. Right, so we're going to do something similar, and we are going to document how our intro and our title scene would flow, with the navigation would be like, what parts should we expect? And it's helpful to begin to start to think about how to develop this. So in the endpoint assignment, we have the wireframes for title and intro scenes. So diagrams that visually demonstrate how the prototype should function, what features are available to the user, and how the user interface should look and act. Not so much look, I guess, but in a very vague way. And this is my finished one. Yep. And so this is the diagramming tool I'm going to teach you. This is the same tool that's taught in IT 201. It's for free. It's on Google Drive. And before I get into the tool, let me just use the app. So this is the prototype on itch.io. This is the title page or the home page, start page. And we can jump into the intro. And here's just like what this thing is, just in a brief comment. And then we go through all the sections of the research. Overview, solution, competing software, review, suggested improvements, stakeholders, persona, justification, the problem scenario, activity scenario, problem statement, and then home. So here you should be able to see that these arrows are the user's journey as they're clicking, and the yellow button is what they clicked on. So we have our splash screen, our title screen, whatever. That's what this is. And there's 3 buttons, and we click on intro, and we go here to the first page of the intro. Welcome to bubble sort, learn computer science. And this back button shouldn't be here. And we can go next or home. We've got overview, solution, computing review, suggest improvements, and so on. And you can see the arrows as we're going next, 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 and next, and to the end. So at least we show what the navigation is and the interactions to move through it and what the content is that will be filled out. So it gives a lot of directions to the user and it organizes yourself. So for the intro page, you're not going to really have that much to deviate from me, but feel free if you wish to use different buttons or whatever. In the very least, you're going to have your title page, have your own text and subtext. This information is going to have to be completely all you, and then you're going to copy and paste all the rest of your information in here. So when you make your wireframe, I do expect it to be very similar to mine. If you do wish to use different navigation buttons, that's great. You can use graphics, you can use different names, you can place them in different locations. And that's basically it. If you have other ideas for the intro, go for it. You just have to present all your information that you've created in your research. You need this title screen with your title and your subtitle. You need the 3 buttons at least. This text that grounds the user into the intro, you're going to need it, but it needs to be for your idea. And all this stuff is going to be yours as well. So this is the core structure you have to follow. You can be as close to me as you wish to, and you can express yourself differently. But you will have to be able to make this diagram because down the road, not only is it a good skill set, but for later on, as you start to deviate farther from me, you should be able to diagram what's going on a little bit. So let me bring over Google Drive and tell you how to get this diagramming tool going. So you just create a folder, IT380 or what have you, in your NJT's Google Drive, but go to New, More. For me, I already have the diagrams.net. It's a free tool. But you would go to Connect More Apps, and you would go and type up the, here it is, diagrams.net, the draw IO. So you would search for this one. For me, it's installed, but you would install it and let it install. And once it's installed, you can jump out of here and you'll just have it sitting there. And so if you click that, you're going to create a new one. Just make it blank, but just give it some name. So Sprint01 Wireframe or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to create the name of the document, and where to place it is a little tricky. So let's just place it now before we actually start using the tool. So File, Move to Folder. So their little UI is a little clunky here, but just say no, you don't want to place it at the root of Google Drive, and you're going to go where you want to go. So for me, it's going to be classes, IT380, and I'm going to put it in my full classes. But the weird thing is you have to click the actual folder where you want to place it. You don't want to double click it, because if you go into it, notice the select button isn't highlighted. You actually just have to be one folder above it and click and then say select, and it will place that file there. So I'll just say select. All right, so now we have a file name and we have a folder location in Google Drive. That's good. And we're just going to use the basic tools. So basically you just use a rectangle. Let's see what starts off, splash screen. Okay, so I ended up sizing it a little bit. Let's see, I'm just using these major grid points, 4 by 7. Now you can change that later as you're making it. Everything is resizable and modifiable, blah, blah, blah. That's great, but I've already made it. So you can double click and say title page or what have you. So you can write text right on it. All right, and you can use rounded rectangle if you care to. I'm just going simple. So we have 3 buttons. These do have rounded rectangle. So I'll bring in a rounded rectangle and I'll shrink it down. If you want to keep it centered as you're scaling it, I think it's, yeah, it looks like it's the control key. So notice that it stays centered up where I drew it. And I'm just pressing the arrow key, and our shift arrow moves it 5 like lines, and arrow just moves it 1 line. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit because it's a little hard to see. Now, the style, I didn't see how I think if you make this one yellow and you put a shadow, okay. So you should put a color on it, you put a shadow on it, you could double click it, and it's going to be, this button is the intro button. And let's see, if I alt drag, nope. Yeah, you can control drag to duplicate or do the control C and control V. So tutorial, we're not going to say it was clicked, so we're going to revert it back to its default look. All right. So the trick is I want to move these 2. You have to select over the whole thing to select it. Notice I'm not selecting the big box or anything around it because I didn't select the whole thing. I'm going to move these up. It's okay that I'm covering that for right now. I'll show you in a second. Then do the 3rd one is level 1. All right, I got my 3 buttons. Now, I can't, since I just placed the text on the box, you can't really like move it around too well. You can center it horizontally, but not vertically, but you can enter some spaces, I noticed, and that'll push it up. All right, so that's if you want to like vertically push it off, just put some spaces underneath it. Or if this text element isn't working well at all, you can drag on it, just the text element, and you can place it wherever you want to within the box. All right. So we have our first section, thumbnail of our wireframe, and it's more or less complete. Now I can talk about moving. So if you did want to move this whole thing, notice how I select like that. I'm only getting the buttons, and I would have to drag over this whole thing, and now I get all of them together. So just be aware of moving it. Just notice how I felt like aligning it to like the major grid lines. It made things really easy to me. You could also select everything and say arrange group. So when you do that, they group up together and they all move together. So it's easier. If you double click, you can dive into the individual components. So it's very similar to Illustrator if you use that. So next, we have the welcome to bubble sort. All right, I'm just going to take this whole thing and I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to hold the shift key with the control key, and you just like move it in an alignment. It doesn't offset from it. It stays horizontally correct, the same. And this one was, okay, welcome to bubble sort. I don't feel like writing this all out, so I'm just going to copy that. Now again, you have to create your own. And if it's too high, I could delete some spaces underneath it. Now, I'm going to reuse this button for my next button, and then I'll use this button for my home button. And delete this one. So this is home. Now there's no back because there's nothing to go back to. But the user does click next. And we go on to overview. All right. So control, drag. Now notice I'm off the paper, and it created like another sheet of paper. See that dotted line? Now, that's okay. If you don't want to do it, just make sure you stay within the confines of one paper. But I think it's okay because I end up doing 3 blocks at usually English readers will go left to right, and then up to down, which is why I did a structure like this. So anyway, feel free to divide and conquer as you care to, but this is the overview. And I'm just going to take this and control, and I'm not going to hold shift because it's not aligned, it's moved down and to the left, but it's easy to snap because I have it aligned with the grid. This is proposed EdTech. And then home and next button are the same. It looks like I should have the back button though, so maybe I should do that. Okay, and so on. So I'll just copy this 2 more times, and I'll just say that's the end. You would continue on the whole thing. But you're getting a gist for how to use the software. All right. So the last thing I want to show you, or no, there's 2 more things, but how to do the arrows. So the awesome thing about this tool is if you just click on an element, these arrows appear. So these are scale, that's rotate, and then this is position move. But I can click on this arrow and just connect it to another one. And if they're all lined up, you get a nice clean arrow, and it's super easy to connect because I've already spent effort aligning them to the grid and with each other. So if you wish to mess with the arrow, you can make it thicker, you can make it dashed, you can put different arrows on either end and what have you. I'll do the easy arrows first, and then I'll do the hard arrow last. So those are the easy arrows. Those should be relatively easy for you to replicate. The hard arrow, we want to come off of this side and come all the way down to there. Now notice that it kind of did it. This works really well. But notice how my mouse icon changes. So if you really don't like what happened, you can just adjust parts of that line to rebuild it. So that one was correct enough. And notice how kind of it's intelligently moves to another part of this element. It knows what I'm trying to do. So that's why I like this tool. It's easy to use. It's free. It's part of Google Drive. So the file name is correct. The folder location is great. And I taught you every single part except how to export. So do not give me a draw.io file. I don't want a link to something in Google Drive. I want an actual JPEG or a PNG that you can just embed. So the good thing is if you have nothing else in there, you could just export it and it'll just crop to it. If you have other diagrams within it and you only want part of it, you can select everything that you want to become your image, and then you can click selection only and crop. But in this case, I don't even need to do that. So now you have to say where do you want it. You can put it on your hard drive, or you can put it up on Google Drive. So since I showed you how to use the Google Drive file interface, let's use the hard drive one here. So actually it just looked like it spit it out onto, let's see. So is it in my desktop? Nope. It's in downloads, I'm guessing. Yep. All right, it just drops it into downloads. And as you can see, it cropped the image. And then now you have a JPEG, and you know how to embed an image into your posting. Just make sure to click the embed image. I don't know if I have let's see if I have something I can open real quick. It is a posting. I can edit that. Just make sure you add some text and then embed image here, and you have to click on canvas. For you, it'll say My Files Only. Click Upload a File. Click on the file you want to upload. Click OK. Let it process. It'll tell you how big it is. You click Update, and that's how you do that. That's the whole process of diagramming. So good luck, and now you should be able to create your own diagram for your